is business, never personal.
Here's the 3rd and 7, and the carry goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Things in life that suck. Death, taxes, and 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for diehard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. And on today's show, we're going to talk and touch on a little bit of free agency. As you guys may have known if you follow me on Twitter at AMBA513 or on Facebook, you would have noticed that I've started on my contract projections. So we're going to talk a little bit about that more in depth. We'll touch on my mock draft that was released after the championship. And we'll touch on some of the players who I've listed on my Facebook page. If you guys follow me on Facebook at New Stripe City, you guys know that I've been uploading random highlights of specific players. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a rundown on some of those guys, as well as anything else pertaining to the Bengals offseason. So right now we're kind of in a little bit of a purgatory. We're waiting for the regular season to end and the playoffs are playing out. And I really want the Steelers to lose. I'm sorry. I've been Team Cincinnati Chiefs, Team Cincinnati Dolphins, and now I'm Team Cincinnati Patriots. Yes, it's that bad. I hate the Squillers with a passion. I want them to lose. I want them to lose bad. And yeah, that basically wraps it up in a nutshell. I have no feelings for them other than hatred. So, yeah, let's hope that Tom Brady and these guys can send these guys back to Pittsburgh with AL. So, anyways, on to the next topic, free agency. So, if you guys follow me, and if you've been following me for a while now, last year I kind of started this new thing where I started doing my contract projections. And like I mentioned in my last episode, they were pretty close, pretty spot on. So this year I'm doing the same thing. And I really wanted to talk about two players in general who are going to be some top targets for the Bengals this offseason. So we're going to talk about Kevin Zeitler, who actually may not cost as much if he doesn't make it to market. He may not cost as much as I initially thought that he would. And we'll talk about Dre Kirkpatrick, who actually, in a sense, may cost a little bit more than people actually think. So, let's start off with number one, Kevin Zeitler. Obviously, one of the best linemen that we have. Outside of Andrew Whitworth, you'd be hard-pressed to say or find anybody else on this line who's as good as him. So the way that I normally do this, I have my own little formula. It seems to work well. But judging off of the numbers and what this projection comes out to be, it's actually $43.8 million. And I believe that's for 5 years. So his average salary comes in at $8.7 million with $17 million guaranteed. Almost a $5 million signing bonus. So what that says is, if the Bengals were able to try to approach Zeitler with a deal before he was able to enter free agency, this would be a decent number to draw both sides closer. Now, with that being said, we also know that last year, Kalichi Osamele, or however you say the guy's name, was able to get about $11 million per year. Okay, and that was because he was able to test the market. Now, it really depends on Kevin Zeitler. What does he want to do? From what I've heard, he loves Cincinnati. He wants to stay there. But it also will be an injustice to himself to not test the market. So it's really going to come down to how much does this guy want to stay in Cincinnati? Okay, so he's looking at 8.7 million, but again, that's if he isn't able to walk out there on the market. If he does, he could really get a lot of money. 11 to 12 million. Some team might throw a couple more million on top of the going rate just to get the guy away, which the guard is an important position. I could see it happening. But anyways, it looks good in that area. If the Bengals are willing to pay that and he's willing to take that to stay, I think that there's a decent chance there. Now, next I went over Dre Kirkpatrick and we looked at his market value. And Dre's is actually pretty hard to kind of get a sense on just because Stephon Gilmore still hasn't received a new contract. Jermaine Johnson still hasn't received his new contract. So right now, all you can really go off of is Janoris Jenkins and a couple of other guys. Guys like Maxwell, who's down in Miami now, Jimmy Smith in our division with the Ravens. So running his numbers, it's pretty interesting because I come to the outcome of 45.9 million. So basically 46 million for 4 years. Okay, 25 million guaranteed. An average salary of $11 million. Okay, so the low end of this, before I did this calculation, it was around like $10 million a year. So I take that as the floor of what you could pay Dre. Now, a lot of people, I posted this in this group on Facebook called Bengals Real Talk, and a lot of people were like, hey, that's kind of expensive for Dre, right? But you have to realize cornerback is a premium position. These are some of the guys that get paid the most in the league. And so when you go back and look at it, you have to remember that Josh Norman is getting paid $15 million a year. Now, I'm not saying in any shape or form that Dre is on the level of a Josh Norman, but they were in the same draft class. He's actually a little bit older than Dre, and he gets $15 million a year. You look at guys like Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson. I mean, you're talking about guys that make a healthy 13 plus to 15 million per year. I'm just going to go ahead and roll down the list of these names and their salaries. You've got Josh Norman at 15, as I stated earlier, Darrelle Revis at 14, Patrick Peterson at 14, Richard Sherman at 14. Tremaine Johnson is at near 14, but that's really only because he was franchised. You've got Joe Hayden at 13.5. You've got Janoris Jenkins at 12.5. You have Darius Slay at 12 million, and you have Byron Maxwell at 10.5 million, Jimmy Smith at 10.2 million, and Brandon Carr at 10 million. And so when you look at the rate and the going rate there, Dre kind of falls in with this projection like right where he actually kind of should be, which is a little bit better than Byron Maxwell, who has been a corner that has struggled. He had one good year with the Seahawks and basically earned that contract off of that one good year. And he's slightly over Jimmy Smith. Some say that that's debatable, but I mean, I'd find it hard pressed to say that Dre isn't either on the same level of those guys or can earn a little bit more than those guys. But when you look at guys like Darius Slay and Janoris Jenkins, I'm not sure if Dre is that good either, so he can't make more than those guys. So he falls right in the middle, right at 11. So the Bengals have a serious choice on their hands. Can they get Dre at that $10 million per year? We'll see. With having all of these options at cornerback, whether it's Darqueze Dennard, whether it's Kivari Russell, William Jackson III, I think Dre is a guy that they actually want to keep. When you listen to what Marvin Lewis said about the guy at the end of the season, seems like our fellow podcast BP said, it sounds like a guy that's staying. So if they're going to have to do what they can to keep Dre, they have to pony up some money to get him. So I think, like I said earlier, you're paying $10.5 million. I think the market rate for him will be $11 million, and we have to hope that Stephon Gilmore and Tremaine Johnson don't reset the market, because that could happen. So, there's a chance that one of those guys could end up getting 16 or 17 million just because they might have a team that wants to jump out there and grab them. So always have to keep that in mind with free agency. It's what the market is, not necessarily the player. And so Dre Kirkpatrick is a guy that's well known around the league, that people are familiar with. He had a pretty decent year. He's a rare corner in terms of his size. You're talking about a guy that's like 6'3", so he's going to be a guy that a lot of people go after. Now, I think with Dre, he kind of made it apparent that he wants to stay with the winning team. So he may be able to, or he may be willing to sacrifice a little bit of that money to stay with the Bengals, okay, or go to a winner. So I think he would really want to stay with the Bengals. He's kind of taken to the city. He really likes it. And I think that through the trials and tribulations that he went through, being here, playing here, I think that he really wants to stay. So next thing that I'm going to get into real quick is some inside information that I have. And I'm going to say that I'm not going to share it. I'm not going to disclose it. But I will drop some hints of some positive information. Now, the reason why I don't really disclose my sources, I'm not like Chris Broussard or anything. I'm just a regular guy. I don't claim to know people or anything, but I happen to know some of the right people in the right places within the Bengals organization. Not necessarily the front office or anything, so don't get too carried away. But, I have somewhat of an inside sense, and it is because I'm privy to certain things that I do not disclose, certain details and full ramifications of everything in respect to the people that it comes from. And I know firsthand that this source is legit. I've actually used it in the past in a bad way, which kind of blew up in my face. So that kind of taught me a lesson right there. Not to, disclose everything. You have to respect people's privacy and things of that nature. And I'm a fan, and I wouldn't want to divulge anything negative or positive or anything on anyone's life that they don't really want out there. But what I will say is, with the Pacman Jones situation, it's kind of up in the air right now with the judge and everything. I actually heard that the actual what really happened and what really went down, and it really isn't as big as it seems. I'll just let Who Dey Nation know that. People make mistakes, and I'm not saying that anything was, malicious or anything like that, but it honestly, if you guys really knew what the truth was, it was a simple mistake. It's something that you or me could have done that went from 0 to 100. Let's just put it like that, okay? It kind of was blown over for what the real truth was. Now, I'm not saying I don't know what the judge is gonna do. I don't know what Roger Goodell, is gonna do. But having a chance to hear what actually happened, I'm more confident and feeling like Pacman Jones will be back, and this is why the Bengals have stuck by him. So don't listen to the garbage narrative out there that the Bengals are just giving Pacman, the benefit of the doubt or anything. It really was, according to my source, a big misunderstanding. Let's just leave it at that, and I won't really touch too much on that. But I get a lot of nuggets here and there, and I don't want to turn into being a hot takes guy. That's not my style. I kind of like to talk about the team. I like to be the voice of the underground. I like being there. I like being slept on. But I'm privy to a lot of stuff, man. I mean, even, I'm not even gonna open up that bag of worms, but I know about a lot of stuff that some major media outlets don't even know pertaining to the Bengals. So let's just keep it at that. Now, with that being said, the next preview and breakdown that I will do will be on Andrew Whitworth for his contract projection. We'll get into a couple guys like Brandon LaFell, see what their market value is, and we'll go from there. But in other Bengals news, let's shift into the mock draft. Now, with the mock draft, you're going to see a bunch of things right now. You're going to see a lot of guys right now being mocked to the Bengals that may not be there. You're going to see a lot of guys who could end up being there, but may drop a couple of rounds. So, like, right now, you really don't know who's going where. Okay, the Senior Bowl hasn't even started. And honestly, if you're hearing any whispers and things, right now, it's way too early for that, bruh. It's way too early for that. And I'm not saying that sitting up here, sitting on a pedestal or anything, but I really be on this draft stuff, man. When I tell you I really be on it, I really be on it. Like, check Prime, man. I really be on it. Like, and, if you ever have a question about something or the validity of anything, you never truly know what is real and what is smoke and what is just made up. But one thing that I will say, and it's a website that I've been going to for a couple years, the people at Walter Football, the stuff that they say, which is like intel that they get during the Senior Bowl, it's legit. Like, it's really legit, and it's hard to get a pulse on the Bengals. But if you're hearing anything that's coming out now, like before the Senior Bowl has even taken place, do not believe it, okay? That's all I'm going to tell y'all. But, if you start to hear stuff trickle out during the Senior Bowl, that stuff tends to be like legit information because scouts are kind of more laid back. It's more of a laid back environment there. And they're more willing to kind of, at least if they may not put a name behind, who said what, but they'll let you know like where they see guys going. They'll let you know if they think that a guy is going to go in the first round, second round, third round, what kind of grade that they have on them. So just hold off and wait until the Senior Bowl happens, because even though some of those players who aren't going there won't be there, the scouts will be talking about them. So that's a key time. The combine is a key time. And then you have to avoid the smoke too. It's a lot of smoke that gets pumped up after that. Guys kind of start to tighten it up and not relay too much information after we get close to the draft. So just be mindful of that. But let's get into the mock draft. So Mel Kiper dropped his mock draft today, and he had a guy that I actually had posted on my Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, check us out at New Stripe City. I upload different kind of highlight tapes, and it's something for you guys to kind of follow the journey that I'm on when I'm watching these guys on film. So I have no problem with sharing that with you. And if you follow me on Twitter, you actually can see when I add a video to my Bengals playlist. So if you follow me on Twitter at AMBA, you can catch me there, or you can catch me on New Stripe City. But the big name going around now is Solomon Thomas. Okay, now to me, I respect Mel Kiper. I respect what he does. He's been an OG in the game. But Solomon Thomas, to me, and I haven't done Prime yet, so Prime's a big indicator. But to me, Solomon Thomas looks like a guy that's more of a defensive tackle, per se. It looks like he can play a little bit on the outside, but he's more so suited for the inside. So I'm not saying he's not talented enough to be taken there, but it's kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. And it wasn't just Mel that posted that; it was a lot of people that posted that. So I'm not really judging Mel per se, and especially with it still being, the playoffs haven't even ended yet. So Mel can change a lot from now until before the draft. So Solomon Thomas is a guy that's been thrown out there, but to me, like I told y'all, he's more of a D tackle to me, which I really don't see the Bengals going in that direction. We're starting to see a lot of people jump on the Reuben Foster trade, or the Reuben Foster train, which I've been on since day one. That's really who I want. But I kind of have learned not to and it might just be like a personal thing. I just don't try to get attached to one specific prospect too much, because then it like messes up your whole draft when that guy goes to like another team or somebody trades up and takes him and you really want the guy, and then you're like depressed for 3 or 4 days because you didn't get your guy. I know it happened to me plenty of times, so I don't get too invested, but honestly, he's my favorite guy. So don't think that I'm, not wanting us to land Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster was my first pick. He was actually the first person that I watched in terms of highlights and everything. And he was the guy that I wanted from day one. As soon as I saw him, I was like, I want that guy. Okay? Him with Tez, I mean, that almost has to be a trending topic in the Bengals community. Anytime you say Reuben Foster, immediately following that is like him and Tez, bruh. Him and Tez would just be, oh my God, that would be poetry in the Bengals defensive unit, my friend. But I've seen some weird ones with like us taking a corner. I really don't know. No. Now I did say last year that we were taking a corner when everybody, there was actually another guy in a group that believed that we were taking corner as well. But I don't think corner is even an option this year. Okay. But you've seen, of course, the Derek Barnetts. I've even seen a Jonathan Allen thrown in there, which I doubt that he'll be there by that point. But you never know. Somebody always falls out of the top 5 or top 10. So you never know. But we can go ahead and get into the mock draft that I dropped. And in that mock draft, in the first round, if he's there, which I doubt, like I've told you guys before, I doubt that he will be there. But if he's there, you have to take Mike Williams, number 7. Now, this is why you would have to take Mike Williams. The more and more, if you really look at this draft, and you really look at some of the Bengals, the history behind some of what they do and how they kind of approach drafts, you'll notice that when there's a position that's very deep, which last year we saw this with defensive tackle, which was last year's defensive tackle class was crazy. So basically, this year is like that class at defensive tackle, at defensive end, or edge rusher. So this is a very deep class at edge rusher. This is a very deep class at corner. Like I told you guys before, man, in the past, the Bengals have never taken a defensive end in the first round. Okay? They usually like taking those guys in the second, third rounds. Those are the times that they take defensive ends. Carlos Dunlap, Marcus Hunt, Michael Johnson. I mean, the list goes on. So, to me, if you have a guy like Mike Williams there, which, like I said, more than likely he probably won't be there, you have to go Mike Williams. You have to go Mike Williams, man, because this class is so deep at edge, you can wait until, the second round to grab your guy. And, I mean, Mike Williams sells itself. He's a big target. If you were also watching during the national championship on Twitter, Brandon LaFell was actually cheering him on. So Brandon LaFell is a guy that I think that we can keep and bring in a guy like Mike Williams, who could be another target for Andy. And I mean, it's Mike Williams, bro. I mean, I really don't need to say much about him. So that takes me to the second. Now, remember I told y'all that I put a lot of certainty into Watcher Football. They have a great, reputation that they've built lately with some of the stuff that comes out of there as far as rumors and everything. And early reports have indicated that Tim Williams could possibly fall to the second round due to his issues with marijuana. So I expect a similar slide to Noah Spence last year. Apparently he failed a lot of drug tests, and to me it's in a sense overblown, because is marijuana a drug? Is it not a drug? Owners last year were talking about softening up their stance against it as far as removing it from the banned substance abuse policy that they have. So who knows, man? I mean, but if they really truly feel like he's going to slide, I think the latest that he will slide is into the second round. And I think that it'll be more so because this edge rusher class is actually deeper. So if he falls to the top part of round 2 and the Bengals are sitting there, I have the Bengals taking Tim Williams, the guy who I had them taking in the first round in my last mock. If this was to happen, this is like a super wishful scenario. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it could happen, but the percentages of this happening, I'd probably put that at like 12%, bro. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. But if this happened, you would have not only the best receiver, you'd have a guy that could potentially be the best edge rusher in this class in Tim Williams. And this guy was, like I told y'all before, compared to Lawrence Taylor. Okay? So we knocked out our need at wide receiver, which to me, like I told y'all before, isn't really a huge one, but you have to take the best player available. And Mike Williams is the best player available. And then you had to take the BPA again with a need in Tim Williams. So that brings me to the third round where we go with Pat Eiflin. Okay? Pat Eiflin will definitely help fix this offensive line, which was horrible last year. He also possesses the ability to play multiple positions between center and guard. So he could be a guy that could step in for Zeitler. He could be a guy, to potentially replace Bodine or give Bodine some competition, or Bodine, I don't know. He's garbage. I don't care how to say his name. And then we go back to linebacker again. With Kendall Beckwith straight out of LSU. I actually made a mistake in my next pick with the comp pick, and this makes me sad, man. The kicker, Daniel Carlson from Auburn, man, I believe, and don't quote me, but I believe he's not coming out, man. So he was a very good kicker. So yeah, that sucks. And then I'm sticking with Devion Smith at running back again. I've heard some reports out of, I believe it's the East and West running game. He's looking pretty good. So, like I said on the last time, he's a guy that could possibly replace Jeremy Hill. He's a very interesting pick. But with that being said, that's my second mock. And in my third transition, I kind of want to talk about Jeremy Hill, man. He's been a lightning rod right now for Who Dey Nation. And earlier today, man, I actually did a pretty interesting post because I really wanted to deep dive into why this guy is struggling, how he really does. And at first, I kind of felt like Hill is a guy that in 2015, I think he was. I agree with the notion that he was, trying to do too much in terms of dancing and everything. And I do agree with some people that say, we do need to let Rex Burkhead have an opportunity if he does stay here. I don't disagree with that at all. But to me, it kind of seems like people are criticizing this guy a little too harshly. So I played a little game earlier and I did some research, looked around, and I dropped this question, and it basically was like, okay, let's play a little game real quick for the Jeremy Hill haters. I've grabbed three players. We're going to call one player A, we're going to call another one player B, and player C. And I put up their stats, okay? Player A played in 13 games, had 252 carries, 3.9 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns, and 997 rushing yards. Player B played in 15 games, had 222 carries, so that's 30 less than player A, and had 3.8 yards per carry with 10 touchdowns and 839 rushing yards. And player C played in 16 games, had 278 carries, 3.2 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns, and 885 rushing yards. Okay? Now, I'm gonna just give y'all one of the answers. Player B is Jeremy Hill. But players A and C, player A is Melvin Gordon. Player C is Todd Gurley. And to me, that helps put things in perspective, man. Like, a lot of our people are talking about trade Jeremy Hill and, he's so trash and all. I don't hear anybody saying that about Melvin Gordon or Todd Gurley. And to me, this is my thing with Hill. I don't want to make any excuses for the guy, okay? But I think what really kind of changed my mind was that Steelers loss kind of burned me, bro. I'm not going to lie. But I rewatched that game a couple times. Now, I haven't watched the entire season. Not going to sit up here and act like I've broken down every single Jeremy Hill play. But I watched that game, bro. And if you get a chance, watch that game and let me know what holes Jeremy Hill was supposed to hit. Because if you saw when Jeremy Hill actually got blocking in that game, the guy easily had 7 to 10 yards per carry. But on the plays where he was stuffed or anything, or people say that he hesitates a lot, look at some of the times that he hesitates. It's because the hole isn't actually there. Okay? So, in my opinion, do I think that the Bengals should still draft the running back? Yeah. Do I think they will? I think they will. But, going as far as to say the Bengals should draft Leonard Fournette and all of it, that's a reach, man. I'm just going to be real with y'all. That's a reach, my friend. And I mean, you guys are entitled to your opinions. I'm not saying that Jeremy Hill is a stud running back, but if this guy, nearly runs for 100 yards, if he plays that last game and runs for 100 yards, you're talking about a guy who had a 1,000-yard season with 10 touchdowns. Is that really trash? That's really trash to y'all? I mean, and you would think that we would realize where we came from. So everybody's ready to run Jeremy Hill out of town, but y'all just gonna act like y'all forgot about Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, the law firm? Okay, let's bring in player D, Ben Jarvis Green Ellis. Let's talk about Ben Jarvis. You know what I'm saying? The law firm. People weren't, pulling out their pitchforks for the law firm. Okay? Let's look at his season, which was a season where he had 5 less carries than Jeremy Hill. Okay? This guy played in 16 games, had 220 carries, 756 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Okay? So Jeremy Hill is not like the past couple of years, and I mean, to me, 2015 was a way worse season for Jeremy Hill. Okay, he had way less runs under 20 plus and 50 plus yards. I think he only had about 2. I think he only had 2 that year. I mean, last year the guy had like 5 or 6 or 8. It was closer to his actual rookie year. He didn't put the ball on the ground. The guy played hurt. It's just crazy to me that people expect a guy that was hurt to perform at the same level as he is when he's healthy. Marvin Lewis said that he was hurt. Who else said that he was hurt? Our offensive coordinator said he was hurt. He was playing hurt. Jeremy Hill was playing hurt. That might have low-key been the reason why Cedric Pierman was activated, other than Gio, being hurt. Hill was hurt too, so there was a chance Hill could get hurt even worse. So that happened. The offensive line was horrible. The guy played majority of the year without a fullback blocking in front of him. Okay? So I'm just saying, like, people need to calm down about Jeremy Hill. Like, when I just look and see guys talking about, we should trade him for a 4th rounder and just get rid of him, like, relax, man. Now that gets me on the Rex Burkhead. I actually was a huge Rex Burkhead fan before it became cool to do that. I was a fan of his when the guy was drafted. When I watched the film on him, I was like, this guy's pretty good. He reminds me of, a little bit faster Brian Leonard that we used to have. But he's like the total package. He can do a lot. But this is my thing, man. I know everybody wants to jump on the Burkhead train because of that last game, But to me, man, you got to show me a full season first. I'm just going to put that out there, man. And I'm not saying that he's not capable of it. I'm not saying that he can't do it. But there's a difference between when you come in for like the last 5 and 6 games of a season with fresh legs, way less wear and tear on your body, nobody really having film on you, knowing your running style, versus you playing for an entire season, okay? Can Rex Burkhead last and take the beating during a 16-game season? I don't know. Bro. I'm not saying he can't, but I don't know. Is he still going to run with that same burst that he had with those fresh legs because he didn't really play too much early on in the season? I don't know, bro. I don't know. So to me, just like temper your expectations when it comes to him. I'm not saying that the kid can't be good, won't be good, but there's just a difference, man, between a 6 to 7 game stretch versus you playing an entire season. And he's somewhat of a smaller back too, man. And that's the thing too, man. Jeremy Hill and him are two different runners. They have two totally different running styles. Okay, you're talking about a guy that's like 5'10", 5'11", compared to another guy that's 6'2". Okay, I actually played running back in middle school. For one point in time, I actually had the middle school record, but it was actually broken the next year. I had like a 98-yard run for Wyoming High School. It was broken the next year by a guy who had a 99-yard run, so that sucked. But anyway, it was harder for me. There was a guy, and I'll break it down like that. It was a guy that I went to school with. His name was Steve, right? Steve was a pretty tall guy. He was about, during that time, I don't know, man. I mean, I can't really remember what height I was during that time. But anyway, Steve was just way taller than me, bro. He was way taller than me. And I was a short guy. I've always been, a little shorter, on the short end of the spectrum or whatever. But I always had an advantage because with short guys, you can't see them, bro. Like, you can't see us. So it's almost like our secret weapon. Our height is like our secret weapon because it works for us. So you wonder why guys like Darren Sproles and these short guys get off is because people cannot see them over these like behind these linemen. So when you have a guy like Jeremy Hill, 6'2", standing up there, it's kind of hard to miss him per se. So I'm still not giving up on Hill. Should the Bengals take another run back? Sure. But I think that there are a couple of factors that were going against him. Like I said, with the lack of run blocking. And I actually went through the Football Outsiders website where they take a look at all sorts of stats and consistency and adjusted yards per rush and all kind of things. And it's funny because Jeremy Hill actually finished in front of Melvin Gordon. He actually finished, and this was a quote unquote down season for him. He also finished in front of Matt Forte, Jonathan Stewart. There were a couple guys on that list, man. I mean, Doug Martin didn't really play, but he finished better than him. And I think this was like something where they had to have at least a minimum of 100 carries. But he finished above a lot of guys that are starting for teams. I just feel like the way that we're talking and reacting about this is like we have Matt Asiata and Jaron McKinnon starting in our backfield. Oh, he also finished better than Rashad Jennings and Paul Perkins. You want to know what those players, plus the players that I mentioned earlier, like Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley and Jeremy Hill, all have in common? Their offensive line is spotty and trash. So, to me, it's just like we're acting like we're the Giants or something, man. It's just kind of weird to me, man. So, I just want to be, I know I'm not in the majority at all, and I mean, that's cool, but I just want to show Jeremy Hill some love, man. I really do believe in this guy, man, and that might make some people upset, but I still believe in Jeremy Hill, man. I think that he's a guy that if this line blocks properly, he can put things together. I think that he can work in a rotation with Burkhead or vice versa. I really don't think that you want to really get rid of one of your best draft picks in the last couple of years. Because let's be real, when you look at the last three drafts, right, and you look at the players, how many players can you really name that are better than Jeremy Hill from the past 3 drafts, bro? So you're gonna take one of the only guys that you actually kind of hit on and trade him for a 4th rounder? See, this is why fans aren't GMs, man, because you don't do anything like that. You don't get rid of a Jeremy Hill, bro. Jeremy Hill will mess around and, I don't know, let's say he goes somewhere like Green Bay. You don't think Jeremy Hill would eat in Green Bay? He's eating now with a garbage line, 10 touchdowns. 10 touchdowns is like, he can do that in his sleep. He goes somewhere like that, or better yet, he goes somewhere with the actual line that can actually block. I think Jeremy Hill would have people mad. You know, they'd be like, oh, we should have kept him. Now he's out there doing his thing. You do not want to be in that position, bruh. You really don't. So, that's all I'm going to say about Jeremy Hill before I go off on this tangent. But I just wanted to address that, man. I just wanted to address that real quick. So, like I said, man, on our next episode, I know it's the off season, so I'm trying to give you guys as much content as possible. You know, it starts to kind of dry up a little bit around this time, but I kind of like to keep things active and fluid. So, with that being said, man, stay tuned for the next episode. Keep commenting, keep subscribing. We're on iTunes, New Stripe City. You can find us there. You can find us on YouTube, New Stripe City. Follow me, man. I'm telling you, it'll be one of the best things that you decide to do. I know I got to get my followers up and all of that. And that's cool. I mean, to me, the followers will come, man. I'm not really sweating getting followers. But check out what I got going on, man. Check them out. As always, this is your boy Ace Boogie signing off with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.
Always business. Never personal.
Here's a 3rd and 7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Things in life that suck. Death, taxes, and 85 will always go.